In the bright fluorescent light of a bustling supermarket, where carts rattled and shelves overflowed with abundance, a moment of quiet desperation unfolded, almost invisible to the crowd around. A young mother stood frozen in front of the baby formula section. Her sweater hung loosely over her thin frame, and her tired eyes revealed sleepless nights of caring for a newborn. Cradled tightly against her chest was her infant, wrapped in a faded blanket, while her other child tugged gently at her side, asking innocently if they could go home soon. The mother reached for a can of baby milk, her hand trembling slightly as she picked it up and studied the price tag. For a moment, hope flickered in her eyes, but just as quickly, it vanished. She looked down at the few crumpled bills in her wallet, sighed deeply, and with heartbreaking reluctance, placed the can back onto the shelf. It was a simple act, but it carried the weight of a storm. Behind her, unnoticed until now, a man in a tailored black suit had paused in his stride. His eyes followed the mother's weary movements, and though he was a stranger, something about that moment gripped his heart. He was a millionaire, a man who had spent years climbing the ladder of wealth, power, and influence. Yet in that instant, none of his riches seemed to matter compared to the sight of a struggling mother quietly surrendering to the cruel reality that she could not afford the milk her baby needed. He watched as she turned away, her shoulders heavy, her child pressing closer to her for warmth and comfort, and something inside him shifted. If you believe in kindness, in the power of second chances, and in the idea that even the smallest act of compassion can change a life forever, please take a moment right now to like this video, share it with others, leave a comment about what kindness means to you, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Together, we can spread hope where it's needed most. The mother's name was Emily. Life had not been kind to her lately. Just a year ago, she had a husband, a small home, and a dream of building a family filled with love. But tragedy struck without warning when her husband was taken from her in a sudden accident. Left alone with 2 children and bills that never stopped coming, Emily had been forced to choose between rent, electricity, and food almost every day. She picked up part-time work where she could, cleaning houses and taking night shifts at a diner, but no matter how much she tried, the math never added up. And so she found herself here, in the supermarket, painfully aware that even a can of baby formula was beyond her reach. The millionaire, named Jonathan, had come to the store that day for something entirely ordinary, just a bottle of water before his next meeting. He wasn't supposed to be there at that exact moment, in that exact aisle. But fate has a way of guiding people to crossroads they never expect. Jonathan could have walked past. He could have chosen to dismiss what he saw as just another shopper struggling, as countless others did. But the image of Emily placing the can back haunted him. For once, he felt his wealth was not just privilege, it was responsibility. Jonathan followed at a distance, careful not to startle her. He watched her pick up only the bare essentials, a loaf of bread, some discounted vegetables, and a pack of diapers she seemed to debate over for far too long before finally adding it to her basket. Each choice was weighed like gold, every decision cutting deeper into what little she had left. She moved through the aisles with the quiet dignity of someone who carried her burden silently, unwilling to let the world see her break. When she reached the checkout, Emily's anxiety became even more visible. She counted her bills twice, then glanced at the cashier with a strained smile as though apologizing in advance. The baby stirred in her arms, letting out a soft cry, and Emily gently hushed him, whispering words of comfort that only a mother could offer. Her little girl clutched the hem of her sweater, watching curiously as the groceries were scanned. But Jonathan noticed something else, the way Emily's eyes flickered toward the formula aisle again, filled with longing and despair, before she lowered her gaze. Jonathan stepped aside, pretending to browse the candy rack, but his mind was racing. He had built his fortune through hard work and ruthless decisions, always focused on the next deal, the next acquisition, the next opportunity. Yet standing there, he realized none of those victories had ever stirred his heart the way this moment did. He had spent so long building walls around himself that he had forgotten what it felt like to see another's pain and feel compelled to act. As Emily left the store, clutching her meager groceries, Jonathan made his decision. He followed her into the daylight, where the sun cast long shadows across the parking lot. Emily was walking slowly, balancing her crying baby in one arm while holding her daughter's hand in the other. Her car was an old, beaten-up sedan that looked like it had survived one too many winters. She loaded the groceries carefully, as though afraid of damaging even the cheapest items, and her little girl climbed into the back seat quietly. Jonathan approached, his step steady but filled with purpose. He didn't want to frighten her, so he spoke gently, explaining that he had seen her in the store and wanted to help. Emily froze at first, her guard immediately up. Life had taught her to be cautious, especially around strangers who claimed to offer kindness. She shook her head, insisting she couldn't accept charity, her pride fighting against her desperation. But Jonathan's sincerity was undeniable. His voice carried no pity, only genuine compassion. Slowly, Emily's resistance wavered, and when Jonathan handed her a bag with the baby formula and more groceries he had quickly purchased after her, her eyes filled with tears. That day, Jonathan didn't just stop there. He offered Emily his contact information, telling her he wanted to do more, not as charity, but as a way of giving back. At first, Emily was overwhelmed, unsure whether to trust him. But over the following weeks, Jonathan stayed true to his word. He arranged for childcare assistance, helped her secure a better-paying job at one of his companies, and even connected her with housing support so she could move into a safer, more stable environment. The transformation didn't happen overnight, but step by step, Emily began to rebuild her life. She could finally sleep without the crushing anxiety of wondering how she would feed her children the next day. She could dream again, not just survive. Her daughter laughed more freely, her baby grew stronger, and slowly, hope returned to their home. But something else happened during that time. Jonathan himself changed. For years, he had lived in a world of wealth where success was measured by profit margins and accolades. Yet through Emily and her children, he discovered a richer kind of success, the joy of making a difference in someone else's life. He visited often, not as a benefactor, but as a friend. He played with Emily's daughter, who grew fond of him quickly, and he marveled at the resilience Emily carried in her quiet strength. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in hues of orange and gold, Jonathan watched Emily rocking her baby on the porch of her modest new home. He realized that the greatest wealth he had ever gained wasn't in his bank account, it was in that moment of connection, of knowing that kindness could change a life forever. If this story touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with others, subscribing to Kindness Corner, and leaving a comment about what this story means to you. Your engagement helps us keep sharing powerful stories of hope, love, and second chances. And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. What's one act of kindness you'll never forget, either given or received? Drop your answer in the comments below. Because in the end, kindness costs nothing, but its impact can be everything. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment, one act, to change the course of someone's life forever.